Hi, Frank. My name is Ellen, and I will be looking at this essay with you today. Let's take a look at what you've done here. I see that you've submitted your own. Okay, this is a two-part task one with a pie chart and a table. These are usually tricky. Let's see. They did after finishing, and then the salaries after 5 years. All right, let's see. Pie chart compares 6 categories of the destinations of anthropology students after graduating. The table illustrates the salary differences of distinct types of work. Okay, it is clear that most graduates chose a full-time job after finishing courses, and students worked in government sectors had the highest probability to gain more than $100,000. All right, so let's see if we can improve things a little bit. I know you're aiming for a 6.5. I see here that maybe grammar is what needs the most work. Your structure is fine. Let's talk about it. So this was awkward for me. Of the destinations of anthropology students, I felt that was clunky. In other words, it's heavy. It's not as light and it doesn't flow as well as it could. So that's something I would have liked changed. Let's see what I can come up with just off the top of my head. The pie chart compares not the destinations, but it says destinations there. Yeah, I understand. I still would have preferred a different word. The pie chart compares. How about the employment paths of anthropology students? Yeah, you could the pie chart compares the 6 employment paths of anthropology students after graduating. All right, that's nice and clean. And then I would have said while the table illustrates, let's see, you wrote the salary. How about this? The salaries of distinct types of work. It's not really the difference. It's talking about the salaries themselves. Okay, so I would have said that. And then it's fine. Let's see. Then you said, I like this. It is clear that. So this way it makes it kind of obvious to us that this is your overview. So I thought that was good. It is clear that most graduates chose a full-time job after, it's not really courses, but it's finishing their degree, really. And students, you're missing a who here. Students who worked in government sectors had the highest, here you've got some grammar problems. You wrote had the higher probability. It's not the higher, it's the highest. Okay. Highest probability of gaining, it should have been. So students who worked in government sectors had the highest probability of gaining more than 100,000 pounds. Still want to clean that up a little more though. All right, so I looked it over again and I tried to come up with something. I wouldn't have said students, I would have said graduates. So I would have said graduates who worked in the government sector were most likely to earn more than $100,000. Okay, so just little changes in the vocabulary and in the grammar here. All right, graduates, I wouldn't have said the. Graduates getting a full-time employment, not a, but graduates getting full-time employment account for 52% of the total students, 15% of, you're missing an of here, of people did a part-time job after graduation, which is the second most, you're missing the most here, second most popular choice among all anthropology graduates. Students choosing further study and not known are both 8%. Only 5% of the graduates got a part-time job and pursued postgraduate degree courses at the same time. Let me just check your facts here. All right, so what I didn't see here is I didn't see any mention at all of unemployed students. And here's the thing about that. It was 12%. So it's a big enough percentage to be concerned about. You don't have to give us necessarily the number, the figure for it, but you still should have mentioned the category. you see you have several categories here, and IELTS looks at key features. So all of these categories are considered your key features, right? So all these different categories here, and then of course the salaries as well as these types of employment. So these are all your key features. You need to at least mention them, okay? Even if you don't give us data on them. So basically, if I were going to try to draw this pie chart just based on your description, I would not know that there was a category of unemployed graduates. And that's pretty important information, especially when you consider that it's 12% of the group. So another thing that I want to talk to you about, and so I think this is pretty important. It's a detail that you should have included. But another thing that I want to mention to you is your treatment of these figures. You pretty much went down the line. So you went 52, 15, and then 8, and then only 5. So I would have liked to see something that looks a little more analytical. It looks like you kind of made some effort to do something with these numbers rather than just go down the row rather mechanically. So if you look at the band descriptors, there's something that says in task achievement, something about the word mechanical is used. Okay. So there's no real analysis. Rather, it's just a mechanical telling of the data. That's a little bit what I felt like, because you literally just went down the row, 52, 15, 8, blah, blah, blah. Okay. I want you to try to do something a little more, well, sophisticated. For example, you could have done this. You could have said, graduates getting full-time employment account for 52% of the total students, which was the highest percentage. The lowest percentage was that of students who engaged in part-time work and postgraduate study. At only 5%, this was 1/10 of the largest figure. So do you see, I'm doing some manipulation here. I'm showing you that I'm making a comparison between the highest and the lowest percentage. Okay. And then what you could have done is you could have done, essentially having done that, you could have then dealt with these figures altogether. So I would have said in second and third highest popularity were blah, blah, and blah, blah at 15%, and then at 3% less again. So you're doing something with those numbers rather than just saying 15 and 12%. Okay. So you're doing this sort of math here. And then I would have mentioned them. And then all you have left to talk about is the 2 8%. Okay. So it shows a little bit of thought rather than just this mechanical going down the row like a machine. All right, let's keep going. The anthropology graduates doing freelance, it's not consultant, it's consulting. Okay, so they are consultants, but their job is consulting. So let's try it again. The anthropology graduates doing freelance consulting and gaining $25,000 to $49,000 after working 5 years were 5%, and 15% of them had 50,000 to which is the same as graduates. You're missing a who here. You have to work on your relative clauses. Same as graduates who worked in public sectors. People working in private companies had 45% probability. I don't really like this in terms of probability. It's 45% of the graduates working in blah, blah, had this salary. That's what you want to be saying here. All right, I don't really like this idea of talking in probabilities. Let's see, people working in private companies. No, it should have been 45% of the people working in private companies had a salary less than 75,000, and they had the least possibility of gaining more than 100,000 than the other two types. All right, there's really nothing about the 100,000, is there? You didn't really mention it anywhere. Okay, yeah, you mentioned it in the beginning, but we don't have any information about it, and I think that's a bad call. I find that students find tables are the hardest. Honestly, I think they're the hardest too. Let's see what you could have done with this table. So for me here, I think what I would have done is I would have categorized a little differently. Okay, I would have said, where do you see some similarities in figures? Where do you see some differences and so forth? So what I think I would have done here is I would have said that $100,000 plus was the most commonly found salary for graduates after 5 years of graduation. More specifically, anthropology graduates in the public, 50% of anthropology graduates in the government center earned this amount, followed by freelance consultants at 40%, and those in private companies, 30%. All right, so you could have done something like that. Then you could have said, in contrast, the least common salary was 25 to 49%. Here, those in only 10% of those in private companies made this amount, and only 5% of freelancers and government sector workers earned this. Then you could lump these together, okay? And you can do it by, I don't know, there are a couple of different ways. Maybe you could have said, let's see, there's not really many commonalities, is there? Why don't we do this? Those earning between 75 and 199,999 dollars varied between 25 and 40%, with freelance consultants with the greatest percentage of freelance consultants in this group. And then you can say those earning 50 to 74,999 range between 15% and 35%. And then you're pretty much done, because we're not really so concerned about that detail at this point. We've got the highs, we've got the lows, we've got the extremes, and that's what we're really concerned about. So those are just some ways you can do this that I think make it a little more meaningful and make it a little less mechanical. So I know you're really concerned about your scores. I know you mentioned your sub scores, and I got to tell you that we don't really do that. I'm trained as an examiner. I examined for a number of years, but we're usually very wary about giving scores. Nonetheless, since I know the score that you're looking for, I think this is good. But again, there was a little bit of mechanical. So let me put it this way: for you to get that 6.5, you need at least 2 sevens everywhere. Okay, I mean that's a very simplistic way of looking at it, but I think your vocabulary was fine. It wasn't great. I think your task achievement was fine. I think your grammar was fine. It wasn't great. It did have some errors. So it needs a little work. Now, as you can see, I have focused a lot on task achievement. That's an area that I think you can work on in order to improve and to get, those sevens that you need. I understand and I agree with you that trying to aim for a 7 in vocabulary and grammar, with a short amount of time is rather tricky. However, task achievement is something that is more easily improved. Okay. It's talking, and it deals with making sure you've covered all the key points. As I mentioned, you were missing some details. So I wasn't able to kind of recreate some of this information based on your description. That should be kind of like your ultimate goal. Okay. Not like with every single detail, but with just enough detail so that I have the main points and I'm not really missing anything that I should have. So that should be your goal. And when I find, at least, that when the task achievement is good, then a lot of times, and even when the grammar is like okay, a lot of times like the coherence and cohesion also sort of flow with that. They kind of in a way are a little interrelated. So it's kind of hard to see where task achievement ends and when coherence and cohesion begins sometimes. Okay, even though they are different. I do find that when an answer is like a 7 in terms of task achievement, very often the coherence and cohesion will be along the same lines. Okay, so I really focus a lot on the task achievement on this answer, so you can work on that. All right, now let's take a look at. All right, so let's take a look now at your task 2. Some people encourage watching sports as a way of learning about teamwork and strategy, while others believe that one can learn these skills only through playing sports. Discuss both views and give your opinion. All right. Many people believe that watching sport can develop their teamwork and strategy skills. Okay. Others believe that only by playing sports yourself can you learn these skills. Okay. In my opinion, the only way to learn is to experience the process of working together. Okay. So you did some things here that I liked. You did some things here that are important for a band 7. And then you did a couple of things which I wanted to see a little better. Let me show you. So I like this. In my opinion, the only way to learn is to experience the process of working together. So I'm assuming you mean through playing sports. Would have liked you to maybe say it. It's really just kind of lay it out there. So the only way to experience the process, the only way to learn is to experience the process of working together through active involvement in sports. All right, just saying something like that would have made it really crystal clear. So that's what I liked. Now, I didn't like this sentence for 2 reasons. Number one, there was no word of contrast here, and you need it. All right, a comma is not just going to do it. You've got 2 contrasting ideas here. Therefore, you need a linker of contrast. However, although you needed something here. Okay, and this is a coherence and cohesion thing. Remember we talked about coherence and cohesion before? So you needed that. Okay, the comma is not enough. But then I was also a little concerned that I felt like you literally just changed a few words around, but other than that, it felt very lifted from the question. So look, watching sport, and here, watching sport, develop teamwork and strategy skills, teamwork and strategy, okay? And then others believe, playing sports. Do you understand? So a lot of it is lifted. I really wanted to see some original language here. All right. I'm not trying to say like recreate the wheel or anything, but you really did want to try to make it feel a little more original. Okay. That's what I would have liked. I loved what you did here with the only by can you learn. That was a great piece of grammar. That's impressive. So I'm really glad you did that. All right, so that's a few things about the introduction. On the one hand, sports programs or videos can give us a third-person view of the competition. According to these views, we can quickly conclude the efficiency of their strategies and how they cooperate with each other to win this game. It is then easy for us to learn and try to do so. Do what? What is this so referring to? That's not clear. I like this attempt to try to use this. That's a nice form of cohesion, but it's not clear to me what it's referring to. Okay. For instance, when we watch an NBA game, we can see the whole scene and all the players on the court to analyze and learn their skills. Okay. This feels a little underdeveloped. Remember that in my head, I've got that this essay has to be worth at least 2 7s somewhere. And I feel it's a little underdeveloped. I don't really feel like you've done a kind of more extensive handling and a more extensive supporting of some of these ideas. It needed a little more. All right, so I want to change around a few things here. On the one hand, sports programs or videos give us a third-person view of the competition. I wouldn't have said according to these views. I would have said from this, okay, we can quickly not conclude, analyze the efficiency of the strategies used. Now, why did I change it? Because you say their strategies, but who is there? Who are you referring to? Obviously, from a logical perspective, you're talking about the team, the athletes. But since you never referred to them anywhere, the word team or athletes, you've got this there, which is really out of nowhere. So again, in terms of coherence and cohesion, that's an issue, okay? So the efficiency of the strategies used and how athletes cooperate with each other, okay? Athletes, not they. And then I thought this needed a little work. All right. So because you had this thing with do so, again, it was a problem with cohesion. So I think what would have been helpful is we can then take these lessons and apply them to areas of our own life. For example, and then give me an example about how people apply this to their own life. Or maybe when people are, I don't know, when people are at work or at home or wherever, how do we learn about teamwork and how do we apply these things? Yeah. So, I mean, you gave me this example here about the NBA game, but I didn't feel this example really supported anything because the idea is if watching a game helps us develop teamwork and strategy skills. All right. And you didn't really talk about that. You kind of fell short of doing that. All right. Now, you had on the one hand here, you're supposed to have on the other hand. These two expressions go together. If you use one, you have to use the other. Okay? And again, that's another coherence and cohesion issue. So already you can see that I found a few mistakes with coherence and cohesion, and this could potentially affect your score. Okay? So I should also say, though, that coherence and cohesion is one of the areas that is easier to improve than, say, for example, grammar and vocabulary. Okay, so that's why I'm pointing it out. So, on the other hand, learning from mistakes and experiences is the fastest way to improve our cooperation and teamwork skills. For example, a person who has never played basketball but has watched NBA programs will never make the right decisions in the real game. Okay, this is because sports programs only show you their circumstances and solutions, not yours. If you never practice the strategies, you will never know what problems might arise, not to mention how to solve them. Okay. I like this. My only concern is you talk about the fastest way. I don't think that the examples you provided talk about the fastest. I think maybe they talked about the most effective. So maybe you should have used that as an adjective rather than the fastest, the most effective. Okay. And maybe what would have been nice here is if you had wrapped up with something like, because you're telling me what happens when you don't play. Well, how about you tell me what happens when you do? So you have solutions, you know what to do, you know how to. So I just felt like it needed maybe an extra step to really kind of hammer home. Rather than talking all in negatives, maybe it's also talking about the positives, like what happens when you do this. Okay? All right. Oh, you've got two more paragraphs. Oh, what's going on here? All right, let me see. From my point of view, practicing is more significant than watching. When the time comes to use these teamwork skills, you may feel confused and not know how to deal with the situation, although you've watched thousands of games before. All right, I saw what your question was. I would not have put this. Okay, we'll talk about it at the end, but let's get to your conclusion. In my conclusion, while many people encourage others to learn teamwork and strategy by watching sports, I still believe that experiencing and feeling it for yourself is the fastest way to gain these skills. Okay, again, the fastest. I don't agree with that word. Okay, I would have said the most efficient, most effective, one of those, but not the fastest because you never talked about speed. All right, so let's look at your question. This was fine, by the way. The answer is no. Okay, I disagree with this kind of format. Here at IELTSpodcast.com, we generally recommend a 4-paragraph structure, okay, where you have an introduction, a conclusion, and in between you have 2 body paragraphs. You should not have more, okay? This is an essay where they ask you to talk about both sides and give your opinion. When you're giving one of the sides, effectively, your opinion should be in that, okay? So, and it should be clear to us where your opinion lies from the introduction where you stated your position. So I would not have done this. In fact, I felt that this paragraph it didn't help, it didn't do anything, it didn't provide any extra information. If you really felt like you were adding new information, I would have just incorporated it into your second body paragraph. So, Frank, there is some good stuff here, but there is definitely there is definitely room for improvement. I definitely saw that task achievement could be worked on as well as coherence and cohesion. I don't remember anything in your email saying about when you were going to take IELTS next, but I would like to see more work from you. I would like to see how you can improve on these areas, and I'd like to see how we can help you do that. Okay. You'll get some links in the email with your video showing you how we can continue to work together. I encourage you to do that if you found, of course, this correction helpful. Okay, so thanks for submitting this, and I look forward to seeing more of your work. Okay, good luck to you.